All right, Gen X Jeff is here. What is your experience with wokeness and wokeness in the workplace or just in general?
Oh Lord, where do I start? Well, my first taste of it really was in college in the 90s when I tried to major in English and I showed up in the English department and they were talking about dead white European males and why you shouldn't study Shakespeare and Milton and all of those people. And that's exactly what I wanted to study. So I'm like, well, that's why I wanted to major in English. So I had to change my major. And me and the grad students in the library that I worked with would get in these big, long debates about that kind of stuff. But I didn't know to call it wokeness. I didn't know to me that to me it was isolated to that one department. I didn't know it was a trend. I didn't know the future that it was going to have later in my life. So I kind of dismissed it. But I also got really into Harold Bloom at the time. He wrote the Western canon, and he wrote all about how this was invading the academy. So I got the school of resentment, he calls it. So a lot of what I knew about wokeness came from his experiences with it being a professor at Yale, but I didn't extrapolate it to the larger society. I could never have imagined like the ordinary person would ever have been into any of the stuff I was reading about it. So fast forward to, well, I lived in Seattle for years and I worked in Seattle and it's a pretty woke city. So we'd go to some of the trainings and they touch on gender and equity. They had the little equity poster of the baseball game. But again, I didn't connect it into the phenomena that it is today. It was little isolated, little like pinpoints of it here and there. And I could dismiss it. I'm like, okay, check the box for the training and then go on about my day. 2020 and COVID and George Floyd specifically and living in Seattle, the Chaz happened right after that. That was part of the George Floyd riots. And so I was 5 blocks from the Chaz. I saw the riots outside my window. They were like one street away. The Starbucks in front of my house kept getting set on fire and vandalized. So
Jeez.
that's when the light bulb really started to go off that there's something wrong here. There's something I'm not aware of that's emerging or making its way into the public sphere now. And at the same time, I as the George Floyd riots, because I'd watch them on video in Seattle in my apartment. I was watching Benjamin Boyce's Evergreen documentary. It's like I don't know 30 something episodes of the Evergreen protest, and that's what really kind of coalesced everything for me. And I said, "This is messed up. I can't believe this is happening at a university. This is not normal." The administration, I held to me, it was a fault of the administration. They were not curbing this and standing up to these students. They were letting the students control the narrative and control everything, really, to the point of letting them take them hostage and lock them in a room and make demands of the faculty. I'm like, this is not the future that I want for America at all. On a personal level, I had this little Zoom community I had built. It was artists, writers, creative people. We talked about mental health a lot. Several of them, some of them were from Canada, and we got really, really close. And they were all gifted. Some of them were neurodivergent. So I didn't think it was anything but a really tight, close knit community of highly intelligent, creative people, which I'm used to. And I tend to get to trust those people and get very comfortable in those communities. Well, Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility came out, and they all started talking about that and how everybody was racist. And I'm like, none of us are like, how can you think you're racist? You know you're not racist. We're not racist. Like none of the people I know, but they were convinced somehow that they had this secret hidden racism, and that was just so bizarre to me. And then I had a friend who followed Jordan Peterson. I didn't know anything about Jordan Peterson myself. He never came on my radar. But the friend was telling me about him. And so I started talking about him in this group. And some of the women in the group, this was predominantly women, by the way, got really disturbed about just the name Jordan Peterson. And they started lecturing me about how bad he was and how I shouldn't listen to him. And we like went to his website and looked at the different rules. And I'm like, well, I don't think all of these are bad. Like maybe 2/3 of them I agree with, but I don't still understand why he's such a problem for you and how misogynistic he was and anti-women. And so because I was friends with this guy who followed Jordan Peterson, they started to pull away from me and kind of treat me differently. And then at one point, and that's also when I discovered Critical Therapy Antidote, which is an anti-woke mental health organization. And I started getting involved in that. And I was really excited about it. I was meeting all these people. We were going to start a podcast. I was doing Zooms. And I went to this little group to tell them, like, I thought I was sharing good news. Like, hey, guys, let me tell you about this group I just got involved in. We're going to do this and this. And I got all excited. And a few days or maybe a week or so later, one of the ladies I was closest to, I noticed she had taken me off of her Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shook me and threw me. And I didn't know, I didn't do anything that I was aware of to be removed from her Facebook page. So through the grapevine, um, she heard that I was upset and she messaged me and she told me that it was because I was not just not woke, but specifically anti-woke, and that she considers herself woke. And none of this came out in the group. We talked about everything under the sun. We went really deep. We made ourselves really vulnerable. We really got to know each other. And wokeness never came up. Ideology never came up. So I didn't know that she was as woke as she was. Not that it would have made a difference, because I feel like we had already gone so far beyond just surface political opinions and formed like a really strong bond. But for her, just the fact that I was taking these anti-woke positions and I followed this, or I was friends with a person who followed Jordan Peterson, made me enough to pull out of the group, take me off her Facebook page. The group fell apart at that point. A few of us tried to keep it going, but it was never the same. That was my first experience with actual cancellation for political opinions in my life. Like, not even growing up around Republicans did I get canceled or ostracized for my political opinions. They still treated me as a person. They tolerated my presence. And so that experience combined with the George Floyd and watching the Evergreen documentary, I think that's what cemented it for me. That something is afoot in society right now. It's dividing communities. It's dissolving relationships. I've watched the autism community get captured by wokeness. They're policing language and pronouns, and watching it come from other autistic people was a little hard for me to take. So I pulled out of the autism community. Satanism went woke. Every single community I was part of, the mental health communities I'd been part of for years, started to go woke. All of our trainings were about diversity and racism, and none of it was about mental health topics, like during 2020 at all. So having so many groups I was involved in, all of a sudden, almost overnight, start shifting their messaging and the framing of the issues and the message, not only the issues and the messaging, but me and other people involved that they had known for years were suddenly suspect or coming under a different kind of scrutiny. Masculinity played a big part about it. That's kind of haunted me most of my years here in Seattle, especially in the workplace. And we can get into that too. But that's kind of my experiential introduction into wokeness outside of just the few little manifestations of it I had encountered in college and through my reading.
I didn't realize it went back so far to the 90s. Wow.
Well, Harold Bloom started writing about it in the late 60s and all through the 70s. Like
Really?
it really kind of started in the 60s. And you got to remember, this came from the academies, which is kind of its own little ivory tower bubble. So in that particular setting, it had been going on for decades and decades. Queer theory started to coalesce in the 60s. Stonewall happened in the 60s. But we didn't hear about it till it started to make its way out of the academy as people graduated and trickled into the workplace and other areas where they could take what was happening in the academies and kind of start propagating it in their own environments.
Hi, Kaseo Chan. Nice for you to join us. Oh, yeah. I think my first experience with it is I was playing Dungeons and Dragons maybe like 2008 or so. No, about 2013. And just in passing, I know you're gay, and I don't want to offend you. I guess
Oh,
that
you
was
won't
like
offend me.
the term where like gay was kind of like lame, and I can see why it's offensive, I
Oh,
guess. But
like that's gay or something
yeah,
is
like
gay.
oh, that
Yeah.
was like something happened. I said that was gay, and this guy just blew up on me as an INTP guy too, and like I was so confused. I never experienced this. I just moved to a big city. I was in Tucson. I just came from like a community of 600 people to a place of like a million people, and it's a university town too. So it's like a grain of blue in a red salt shaker, I guess. Because well, recently now, like a lot of people came over because of the pandemic, coming from California and stuff. Uh, and there's a lot more Californians, and we're now a swing state, interestingly enough. But yeah, that was like he just like blew up on me. Like, okay, it's lame. Is that better?
This was
And
2013.
yeah, 2013. I think this is when it started getting real crazy, though. I don't know, but it sounded like it was kind of crazy for you before. And Shakespeare, what is like so misogynistic about
He
Shakespeare?
white and
He's
male.
white. Oh, well, I guess back then they didn't let women act, right? So men played women, and which is kind of weird.
Yeah, you want to talk about gender and gender fluidity, like the Globe Theater. That to me that would be one of your biggest allies.
Yeah, yeah, kind of weird. Just real quick, going on a tangent here. I did release your birth chart reading on my other channel, Astrotype. You can find it down low in the
Oh,
description.
oh, cool.
What was your impression of Xeon's reading of you?
That was freaky, man. That was really. I had the same experience with that first astrologer. That's what got me into it in the first place. I didn't know how he was seeing all that stuff about me from just looking at a chart. And Xeon was the same way. Like whatever he saw in that chart had my psychology pegged just to a T. Like he was so accurate about it. And I still don't know how he was. I could only think that he's just very intuitive.
Yeah, I mean, astrology. I'm trying to study it myself, and I have a different lens. I think definitely a darker lens, but I'm nowhere near as proficient as he is. But go ahead and check that out. I think it was a real fun reading.
Yeah, I'll post it today on my thing.
I appreciate it. So we're also going to talk about mental health and how difficult. Like I heard you say on a one of your podcasts, which you can check out Gen X Jeff's channel down below too. He definitely has some great conversations with himself and other people.
With myself.
I can't get in front of a mic. Like I was trying to record a video and just or I edit and I keep messing up. I can't get in front of a camera and just speak. Oh man, I wish I could do that so well. Like
I didn't think I could
whoa,
either. I started. It helps if you have something to do while you're speaking. There's a girl that draws art while she talks. So I said, because I don't do art, I said, well, I can make a jigsaw puzzle while I talk. So I pulled up a jigsaw puzzle and I started putting it together while I talk. And that put my brain in a more relaxed state where I could just let the stream of consciousness flow. And it took
Re-
something like that.
really? I didn't see you doing a jigsaw puzzle when I saw
My
some of
first
your.
few episodes, I would share the screen and show it, and then I just stopped sharing it. But in the
Mm,
background, you can't really tell. But I'm working on a jigsaw. And then another thing that sometimes help is pulling up a website or Chat GPT can generate prompts for you,
mm-hmm.
and just go through an article or a Wikipedia article, maybe in different bullet points, and talk about them. So it gives you prompts to kind of go off of.
Hey, there's Dolbez. Thank you for joining. I think he was that
Stolbez.
is he that Norwegian guy that was on your show?
Yeah, Stolbez. He was my first guest. We
Yeah,
had some
very
great.
very.
We have two really great conversations on my channel.
Yeah, he's very very interesting. I watched the first one and watched the second one. I'll have to check the second one out. Very smart kid.
Indeed, I think he has a bright future, and
Especially
he's into psychology, and mental health
yeah.
too.
Maybe I'll get him on one day. I think he's an INTJ, so maybe I'll get him on my show if he's interested.
I think he's ENTP. I think we had a similar.
ENTP, maybe. I don't know. But he definitely has a lot of. He's like 17 years old and like I was just blown away by all the stuff he
Yeah,
was.
yep. It's people like him that make me a little more optimistic about the future.
Yeah. And there's Schizoid Vision. Thank you for joining, Schizoid. I really appreciate you. I've been trying to contact you too on Discord. I don't know if you have your email or something. I want to. Oh, he's an ENTP. Okay, my bad. But I'm trying to contact you, Schizoid, if you want to work on something together. I'll definitely look for that in the future. But as a male, how has it affected your mental illness with all this stuff? I remember on one of your podcasts you said being a male is more difficult today than growing up gay in the 80s in a little small hick town, right?
Yeah, it is. Well, growing up gay, you were seen as dangerous or a threat to the social order. Um, that's how men are seen today, but on a much wider scale. Like growing up, and I grew up in Trump country in the rural South, and
Mm-hmm.
even there, maybe one or two or three people here and there felt that way, but the general community was pretty tolerant. Like I didn't get a lot of blatant homophobia. Um, Here, it's everywhere, and people are empowered and they feel completely comfortable vocalizing it. I've worked in mainly female dominated workplaces where they talk about white men and um, toxic masculinity, which I absolutely hate that term for many, many reasons. Um, so you hear it just everywhere. People are just so comfortable talking about how awful men. I tell the story all the time of how I was on that mental health committee and I got voted out because one of the ladies said I talk with my hands and that's a sign of violence.
Oh, that's
And I'm
ridiculous.
like, no, I'm gay and I'm from the South and we talk with our hands. And I've done plenty of podcast interviews and I noticed a lot of my guests will talk with their hands. I don't think it's that unusual, but she was convinced it was a sign of violence. And because she was uncomfortable about it, everybody rallied to her side and to protect her because she did the damsel in distress thing. It's the Karpman drama triangle from transactional analysis. You have a victim, a rescuer, and a perpetrator. So anytime a female is made uncomfortable about a male, and that could be anything, talking with your hands. I was in a training one day and they said that because if you're male and you're tall, you can be intimidating. So you have to be aware when you're around women to like downplay your. And I'm thinking, no, I don't. No, absolutely not. Do I have to do that? If somebody can't be around me because I'm male and I'm tall, they have the problem. I don't have to do shit. And so it's stuff like that. Like they try to find things about males or masculinity to make you self conscious about and problematize. And then people play on that. So they can find any little thing about you, tone of voice, they don't like a phrase you used, a word, anything, and they can start making it about how dangerous or potentially dangerous this male is. And when one woman, it only takes one woman to do it, the other women or even the men um, rally to their side as the rescuers because they all want to be the hero. And then I get painted as the perpetrator and the
Mm-hmm.
threat or the danger. And that's happened up here with me as a male way more than it's ever happened to me as a gay person in the South. In the South, growing up gay, you kind of knew who the people like that were, and you just avoided. Y'all stayed out of each other's way, but they weren't on a crusade to make your life miserable. Here, you can't avoid it. It's everywhere. It's at the Starbucks. It's at the workplace. It's at the gaming shops. It's at the your friends' homes. It's everywhere. This kind of ideology that men are dangerous or potentially dangerous. And my last job, I got fired, and part of it was well, the main reason was I think my boss she has trauma around men, and that got set off. We had worked together for almost 2 years. We were very close. We had a great working relationship, but it only takes one little thing to get someone triggered. And then she pulled me into a meeting. It was a 7 hour long meeting, and she wanted me to sign all this paperwork, and I refused. And one of the things that came out of the meeting is how she was worried about leaving me alone in the office with other coworkers. And I'm thinking, I asked her, I said, "What do you think's going to happen? I mean, you've worked with me for over a year now. You've never seen me do anything violent. What are you worried about?" She's like, "Well, I don't know if you're like alone in the break room and you get angry, are you gonna
What?
like hit the refrigerator or attack one of the coworkers?" And I'm thinking, where is she getting this from? Like, none of this is based on reality. None of this is based on anything she's ever seen from me, ever. It came from her trauma got triggered, and her mind is spinning out these scenarios about men and their potential to cause harm, and then she's projecting all that onto me. And I tried to explain this to her, but it's really hard to get people to see that when they're in the middle of it, and if they're not like working with a therapist or don't have a trauma informed awareness around that kind of stuff. So I was
Yeah.
just so surprised because I'm not a violent person, and in fact I got my nose broken one time, and I didn't even throw a punch back. Like, it never even crossed my mind to hit the guy back. And he's just sitting there. Like, he threw the punch. It was a gay guy. I was in front of a gay bar. He was drunk. And I'm thinking, did he just hit me in the nose? And then another punch. And I'm like, yeah, that felt like a punch. I think I'm getting punched in the nose. And he hit me like 5 or 6 times. And never once in my mind did it even cross my mind to hit him back. That's how nonviolent I am. Like, I do not have an instinct to hit or be violent. I am in no way physically dangerous. But you got to remember, the concept of harm now has gotten spread out too. So they're not just talking about physical harm anymore. It's psychological harm, emotional harm, whatever they think harm is harm. So just existing in a workplace and making a coworker uncomfortable just by your mere presence can now be considered harm if you can convince enough people of it.
I'm surprised I haven't been a victim of that stupid mentality. Yeah, this is a funny comment. I just want to show it real quick. Dobiz, talking with your hands is a sign of violence. To have a seizure going to Italy, then I can only imagine. I've never been to Italy, but. And if anybody in the audience has any questions, post it down in there and we'll answer it eventually. Yeah, I think we both, like, with your astrology chart reading, we both have strong Pluto, 8th house, Scorpio energy. It's all kind of the same energy, and people have always been intimidated by me, and I'm surprised I never gotten major trouble for this. But I'd be walking across the street, a woman will just like go and like walk on the other side just to avoid me, and things like that. But INTJs have this reputation for looking pissed off, so I think it's a type thing as well.
What
But
are there a lot of women in your workplace? What's the ratio?
oh, like it's probably like staff wise. Well, I'm a behavioral health tech, and it's half and half, but all the administration is female.
Hmm.
And hi, Elodie, how's it going? Yeah, being an NT is definitely intimidating.
I find you
um,
so easy to talk, like so relaxing, easy to talk to.
yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength. I think it's, well, INTJs and ENTPs are real compatible in that sense, and that's one reason why I think I might be on the spectrum myself, because I kind of get along better with people on the spectrum than I do neurotypical people, it seems. So,
That could be a sign. There's a theory of neurodivergent intersubjectivity, where like
hmm
neurotypicals tend to sync up and kind of relate to each other, but they say the same thing happens with people that are neurodivergent. We have this way of kind of just getting each other and relating to each other with not a lot of barriers in the way. They think it has
yeah,
to do with like a low need for protocol and social coordination. We're able to just talk and deliver content and swap content back and forth without the kind of ritualized formality that seems to come along with a lot of neurotypical communication.
yeah. I think our brains set off wavelength and stuff, like different frequencies, and I think we just kind of have like different frequencies that we're emitting and everything too. I don't know how true that is, but just kind of the way I see it. Kind of like you get an ambiance from people, certain aura they radiate.
Someone was talking the other day, and this has always kind of thrown me about energy and the like you can he was talking about gratitude. So like he tries to set himself into a state of gratitude so that his energy is transmitting gratitude. And people talk about vibes all the time too, and it's because that stuff's so intangible for me. It's really hard for me to know what they're talking about. Like, I understand moods and
hmm
maybe emotions, but he kind of like convinced me a little bit. I think I understand a little bit more what people are talking about when they say that people pick up on kind of the emotional or psychological states of other people. And in fact, that's one thing, that toxic masculinity. My main problem with the term is it doesn't communicate anything. I have no idea what people are saying when they use it. It seems like a buzzword that the in group understands. And instead, so if I'm communicating with someone and I'm using a word that is not communicating anything, I'll try to find a different way to say it. So when I tell people I don't understand what you mean, it's like they double down and dig in and try to like make me aware of how I'm just not aware of they make it about me and my shortcomings and how I just
hmm
don't understand toxicity. And we'll just think of another way to say it. If you're talking about male behavior or specific behaviors, um, then just say it another way and tell me what you're talking about in a very concrete way. But they get married to the use of this term, and they don't want to give up the term toxic somehow. And so they keep trying to convince me that I just don't understand the term, which I don't, but they don't try to say it in a different way to help me understand the larger phenomena that they're actually talking about. And so a friend finally explained it to me that, and he said people in general, this could apply to males or females, can have effect or impact on the, you know what? I think I better pull it up just to get the exact, I don't want to misparaphrase him, but it's the most helpful explanation I've gotten so far. When it means they have a negative effect on the frame of mind of the people around them or other people in question. Okay, that's so subjective to me, and it's going to be different for each person. Like you, you told me you have people find you intimidating or whatever, but you don't have that effect on me. So I might have a negative effect, which is subjective, on some people, but I don't have it on every people. So I don't know how to extrapolate from that. Which that's anybody's going to have varying effects on the people around it, if that's
Yeah.
all toxic masculinity is. But for some reason, there's something particularly tied to males or male behavior that people find having. So if toxic means having a negative effect, it's much more helpful to me to just say, and even masculinity is too broad of a concept, that some men can have a negative effect on the frame of mind of people around them, but then I would say some women can too.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, what is toxic masculinity exactly? I mean, what is so toxic about being masculine? I understand, like, we're more prone to violence and things like that and aggression, but there's a lot of things that we really, without masculinity in men, there would not be much of a modern society, really, right?
I think it would look very different, and
Yeah.
not all of us are prone to violence either. And I think so. I've talked about this on my show before, but my basic principle is if you're not part of the group that's being criticized, I don't care about your criticism. So if you're not male and you experience men in a negative way, you're experiencing from the outside. I don't really care about that. Like, do what you have to do. Avoid men. I mean, you're not going to change us. A lot of it comes from the like blank slateism idea that men are violent because we're taught to be violent, or we hang around other men and we tell each other to be violent. Like, it's not like this innate aggression or testosterone, whatever. And that if we're just taught differently or put in a different environment, we're going to magically not be aggressive or violent. I don't think they understand the male nature. So people that are not male, that don't understand what it's like to have a male body and a male endocrine system, I don't care how they're perceiving or experiencing me. They're putting it together from the outside in, like using their imagination to try to like explain the behavior they find difficult or unpleasant. But I don't take it seriously. Like they don't have credibility for me where I have to take it seriously. But if another man talks to me about it, we're both related. We're both experiencing the same phenomena, so I could relate to what they're saying more. So toxic masculinity to me seems a term from the like an out group looking
Hmm.
in on males, but it doesn't seem like it's something that, although the term was actually derived from the men's groups in the 90s that I was actually a part of, they were trying to develop a more positive image or like mode of masculinity for that particular time. And so they came up with toxic to contrast it with the negative traits that they were trying to move away from, I guess. But if you're talking about violence, just say violence. If you're talking
Oh.
about aggression, just say aggression. But all kind of things get rolled into it.
Hmm. Yeah, I imagine it must be a lot easier being gay now than it was 20, 30 years ago. I wish I was gay in so many ways. I'm just not attracted to men. And I have a 6-year-old son, and I kind of hope, I don't know what the future's going to look like. It's looking fairly bleak right now. But I kind of hope he's gay in the future. I mean, I think it'd be so much easier. Just trying to date these days, going on a first date with a woman is like going on a job interview.
Wow.
There's no romance to it. They're pretty much, they're like vetting you with a fine tooth comb and a microscope, basically. And one wrong move, you say the one wrong thing, then you're out. And women, they go off what you say mostly, not what you do. They don't look at your actions or your true character. That's why they keep falling for these Chad STP type characters who just tell them what they want to hear, get them in bed and abuse them, but they don't really want to give a good guy a chance, you know? How is it like dating as a gay male? I imagine like the autism stuff that usually hurts
That's probably the
relationships in
biggest
general.
barrier. That's why I
Yeah,
try to date other neurodivergent. I haven't dated in like over a decade, so I
really.
don't. I've kind of tabled that. I've pretty much given up. Really, I think I'm just too weird and singular and different to really be compatible with another person. But what are the women? Are they kind of leading now? Like, are they used to? It was kind of the guy that led the date or guided the experience. Is it women now that are in charge of the dates?
It may be me and just my social deficits, but in charge of the dates, I think they pretty much they expect you to do everything still. You know, they want fair rights and stuff. They still expect you to pay. They still expect you to set the time, the place, and the ambiance, I guess. But if you make one small mistake, you're pretty much out. Then they have, you know, five other people ready to go to take them on dates and exude them in, you know, whatever their narcissistic needs are.
So it's
But
more competitive now.
it is, I think it is very competitive. And I was sitting there reading an article, especially younger women these days. There's more and more single males, and males are experiencing loneliness a lot more, and it's affecting their mental health. We have higher suicide rates and stuff like that. But women are dating women more just because of all the, you know, the LGBTQ
Are
whatever
they
the I don't.
attracted to the women, or they're just
I kind of have a theory that all women are bisexual. It just seems like they're always like, oh, we'll be in dressing rooms together. They're always complimenting each other on
oh?
their looks and watching each other naked and groping each other and hugging each other. They seem a lot more open with that sort of
I think they bond differently. They oxytocin bond over
yeah.
feelings and shared experience. I grew up with mostly women. My mom and my sister and all their friends were always at the house, so I kind of have a very intimate view of, and they were all like that. They touchy feely bond and
Yeah.
hug
But
bond.
they definitely seem more prone to doing like homosexual stuff with each other than men will be, I guess. Uh
Well, with the dating stuff, or just in general, really, it seems like it's more about their feeling, like how they're made to feel,
mhm.
more than like rationally analyzing a situation. And is it beneficial for me? What are the advantages, disadvantages? Does the guy make them feel a certain way or not?
I think that's what it's all about is how the guy makes them feel in the present moment. They're not thinking about like, well, how's he going to treat me in the future? Is he just doing this to get me in bed? Is he just doing this to use me? Is he going to beat the shit out of me after the date? And you know, they go for these douchebags, and then all men are bad because they keep having these same patterns, you know. And I fall for the same patterns of bad women too. I'm definitely got a new look on life and stuff, and I'm talking to a couple people, so hopefully it works out, but it
Oh,
usually doesn't. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I think it's hard for men in general these days, unless like you're one of these douchey chads that got the game. But I think with my social deficits, like I said, it makes it even more challenging. And well, I'm a short, bald, overweight dude, so and I don't make much money, so that's definitely goes against me as well.
but I think you have a lot of assets too, like strengths and advantages as well, that somebody would find appealing.
Yeah, I think of very few, but like I said, I had the avoidant personality disorder, and I guess I got to go and talk to people too. That's the hard part.
Oh, yeah.
I think online dating is just a nightmare because women get bombarded with messages, and if you're a dude, unless you make money and you're attractive and good looking, you don't really get much traffic, I guess, on online dating sites. I haven't done those in probably about 6 months to a year. That's definitely bad for mental health for if you're a guy for sure.
Yeah. The gay ones, it's just the same people over and over. Like there's hardly any variety. You had mentioned something about equal rights too, and I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Like I'm an egalitarian, and I kind of assumed that America was more or less, like the ideals at least, were more or less egalitarian. But when I hear how violent women think men are and how threatened women are by men, how there seems like a big power differential, at least from the perspective of the women. So I don't know how it's possible to have an egalitarian society with that kind of power differential, where half of the population is always having to defend themselves from the other half. So it's kind of making me rethink. I still embrace the ideal of egalitarianism, but in practice, if this is truly the experience of women, how do you possibly have a co-equal society with that kind of like threat level from one half of the population? You'd have to overcome that first so people can actually experience each other as equal without the threat of violence.
And it's not that women want equal rights or equality, really. They want to pick and choose what rights they want. Like, they still would, like, well, you still want you to pay for dinner, and they still want you to kill the cockroach, but taking out the trash is a man chore. But how dare you, expect them to do laundry or cook, that sort of thing. A lot of women these days, they won't, like, any relationship I was, like, I had to do all the housework. The women wouldn't want to work. Pretty much had to take care of the kids more or less. And it was very unequal. I was doing 80% of the work, and, they were sitting watching TV and kicking back.
That's bold.
But
Why
I
is
had,
that why it ended?
oh, well, uh, that's a whole other podcast for my past relationships. But yeah, I was with very toxic women and stuff, and I'm sure not all women are this way. And I did meet some women who aren't uh, like this for sure. They're not all like this, so don't get me wrong. This is just, I guess, guys venting. And what is your relationship with women? Do you try to make friends with women, or what? Since you're gay.
Growing up, well, I grew up with my mom and my sister, and that those relationships were kind of fraught from the beginning. Me and my sister had I mean, we're fine now, but as siblings, we kind of had a up and down, rocky. When we were good, but when we were not, we were bad. And so most of the friction in my at least family life were came from women. I got along with the boys fine, and my stepbrother and my male friends. But then, as I grew up gay in high school, college, etc., most of my close friends were with women. They just
Mm-hmm.
were more. I don't know. We could understand each other better. So I'm used to having really close relationships with women, and I have them
Mm-hmm.
with men too. But they just seem to happen more frequently with women. But then recently, like, well, moving to the Pacific Northwest, it was a completely different story. I could not seem to make the same connections with the women up here that I did with all of the other women in my life. And then some of the women that I did form past relationships with that were more on the feminist side, eventually that became a barrier. And like they heard something about me or in what I said or perceived something that clashed with their feminism. And then they started to pull back from the friendship. And these were like 10, 20-year friendships. And so I've watched the feminist ideology kind of come between me and the relationships I did form with women. But I'm used to women being kind of pretty good, reliable friends. But my experiences with the workplace, my experience, like online experiences, like with that group I was telling you about, especially since wokeness, I don't want to hang around people that are going to see me as a threat or constantly stigmatize me or problematize me as a threat. It's like Frankenstein's monster. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
stigma. So I did an experiment the last year or so. I shifted all of my work to men's mental health and working strictly with men. And I pretty much cut all women out of my life as much as I can. And I would say things have never run more smoothly for me when I did
Yeah.
that. My mental health improved. I just relate to guys better. I There's this theory that like people have a basically a masculine psychology or a feminine psychology regardless of what your actual sex is. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a very male psychology. I'm very direct. I like solutions and problem solving and talking things out. And I can do that with men. And men don't have the same reactions that women seem to have about all of this invisible nonverbal stuff, or they'll hear implicit messages that I didn't say, that I'm not even aware that I'm communicating, that make them feel a certain type of way, and that'll come into the relationship. So um, women are just more challenging and difficult for me. So when I stopped pursuing any kind of connection with women and only focused on men, my mental well-being improved, my social life improved. There was less friction and conflict. And that's another thing. When there is conflict, I find that I can work it out better with men, and it's not the catastrophe that it is if it happens with women. And there's a higher threshold for what constitutes conflict. And then recently, because of some communities that I got involved in, um, I'm in contact with women again, and I am making some, and these are gifted women mostly and highly intelligent, but then so were all of the others I talked about too. So far, it's been a positive experience, and we're able to talk and communicate about the differences when they do show up. And I'm cautious, but I guess I'm past the point of like my moratorium on women is over, and I can take individual women on an individual. I've had some on my podcast, and they were wonderful guests. I enjoyed talking with you. I am the type of person that I judge everybody as an individual, and I try not to let, because that's what women do with men. If they have one bad experience with a man, then all men are evil, and they're on guard against every single man. And I try not to do that. So as bad of experiences as I've had with women, I try to give each new woman a chance and take her as a person and not to judge her by my past experience. So that's what I'm doing with all of the new women that are coming into my life, and I'm taking them as an individual, and so far that's working. Um, I do notice differences, particularly in mental health differences, like because a lot of the groups I'm in, it's kind of part of it is support. So our mental health issues and trauma will come up sometimes, and I watch how the women give support to the women, and it's very different than the way I would give support. And so I think women have just different needs around mental health and what helps them when they're having difficulties or what helps them recover from trauma than I do as a male. And I don't know what the, like, I that's why I'm kind of glad I pulled back and strictly focused on men, because I'm not sure I know how to meet the needs of women around mental health. I just watch other women do it, and I can see that it's very different.
Yeah, like for a while I was sitting there thinking, I don't know if you know what schizoid personality disorder. I explained what avoidant personality disorder is. It's kind of a lot real similar, except for
I have
schizoid.
some friends that have schizoid, or so
Yeah,
they
it's
say.
just
They
like
seem normal to me. I enjoy
really
being
that.
friends. I don't see any difficulties, but they say they have schizoid personality disorder.
So they actually communicate with you.
Mm-hmm.
With schizoid, they really have no desire or total indifference. And you can check out Schizoid Vision. I don't know if she's still here. Her channel talks a lot about schizoid personality disorder. But basically, the difference between avoidant personality and schizoid personality disorder is avoidant personality disorder. You have a huge anxiety but fear of social interaction because you feel you're social inept. But schizoid personality, you're just completely indifferent towards it. I thought I was going towards schizoid, but when I just try to cut off relationships, especially trying to find like a romantic relationship, it just doesn't work for me. I just have this urge to go look for it. But let's change gears a little bit. I want to touch on this before our podcast ends. Well, you talked about imposter syndrome quite a bit on the birth chart reading, which you can check out below. Can you go over that a little bit again? That resonated with me a lot as well.
It's kind of the feeling that you're a fraud or a phony or faking. It's an incongruence between your self concept or the way you experience yourself and the feedback you get from other people as to the way they're experiencing you. So no matter how many times somebody tells me what a good job I'm doing, if I don't think I'm doing a good job, I'm not gonna believe it. I'm not gonna be able to internalize that. Like there are some things that I know for a fact I do really well. I'm a really good teacher. I listen well. I read well. I'm a great hiker. Um, I'm a good. I think I'm a decent peer counselor. So there are some things that I do know that I do well, and when people tell me I do them well, I'm like, "Yep, you're right. I agree. I I share the same experience you're having." But there's some things like my professional life um, that people are constantly telling me how good I am, and I just don't see it. And I look at other people that are doing the same thing, and they seem so much better than what I'm doing. But people assure me over and over and over that I am doing something very valuable. I do have this particular skill that's very helpful to people. And like I just launched my practice. And so I'm in the process of getting clients. And this is me on my own. And I've been doing this work for 8 years. I know how to do it and I'm good at it. And I have the job record to reflect that. But I'm still doubt myself. Like, should I be doing this? This seems really ambitious. Do I have the skills to do this? Am I up for this task? Can I really deliver what I'm saying I can deliver? And I have so much doubts and lack of confidence over that. And there's no reason to. There's no external reason to have that. That is my imposter syndrome. There's people that are like concert pianists that don't think they're good piano players. Like in their head, they're just not at the skill level that everybody else thinks they are. And it shows up a lot, particularly in the gifted community, because we set ourselves to such high standards that when I know my standards for myself are very high, and when I'm meeting them, I know I'm meeting them. I know when I'm doing a good job with somebody, or when I'm running a good group, or like even podcasting. I set the bar very low. It's kind of just a hobby, and it's an experimental for me. I'm just kind of learning the process, so I don't have a lot of high expectations for myself around podcasting. I don't think I'm some kind of expert podcaster, a live streamer, or anything. And so keeping the bar low makes it less crippling for me with the imposter syndrome, because I don't have this idea that I'm this great podcaster. So my self-image is not conflicting when it comes to that. The best thing I've found to do with imposter syndrome is to just ignore it and do it anyway. Like I do worst case scenario, like who cares if I bomb at this business? At least I tried it. I'm going to learn something. I learned from failure. Who cares if I'm not a great podcaster? At least I'm learning something in the process of doing it. And I just ignore it because no matter how many times people tell me I'm doing well, that's not going to alleviate it. And I already know that. It's something internal that I have to work on myself.
Yeah, I definitely pretty much like mostly when I was talking to you on your show, the one we did a few weeks ago, I think it was like our lives paralleled basically. It was strange. Imposter syndrome, the same thing. Like I want to start a coaching business too, but I feel like I'm just too mentally unstable myself. I'm not good enough. I don't have the insight. I don't have relation or experience with like relationships or people. I don't think I could offer somebody, and just my crazy schedule, it's really hard too. But Jeff does have a coaching a business he's starting with neurodivergent men. So if you want to check that out, go check him out on Twitter. And he also has his what's primalhelix@gmail.com. You can contact you at.
Primal Hex. And my thing is satyrsgrove.com. And we also have a men's group and a men's Discord that you can join too. You can contact me for that. And Jeff, you have experience, right, working in mental health?
Yeah, I do.
So let's talk, because I think if that's your interest, I think it would be very doable.
Yeah. We could talk about
And
it.
you could always, a good way to find out or start is you could always volunteer somewhere, or just start, I don't know, get involved in a support group and helping people on a volunteer basis and see how you feel you're doing.
Yeah, and I've had people. I used to encourage it all the time. It was kind of overwhelming for me. Like chat me up on Discord or email me or whatever. Talk to me on Instagram, which you can find me at INTJ Equation. I'm not changing all my social media accounts because I changed the name of my channel. I'm just not doing that. But yeah, INTJ Equation at gmail.com. You can contact me on Discord, Facebook, whatever you'd like. I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah, I worked with kids. I also had like a real need to help kids and stuff. And I think young people in a typology community is real difficult because I don't think your personality really sets until you're about 25 or so. So you have a lot of these teenagers or people in their early 20s who are real ambivalent about their type. I call it type dysphoria because a lot of people are like, well, I feel like a ENFJ today, but I woke up a little cranky and I don't want to talk to people, so I'm an INFJ today. So Speaking of dysphoria, my computer keeps timing out. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Like the whole wokeness stuff with the transgender movement, like it's been a crazy experience on like in my jobs. Like recently, I work at a drug and rehab facility, and they house trans women. If I'm saying it right, I get so confused. Like women wanting to be men, transitioning to be men who think they're men, whatever, or men who think they're women. Yeah, whatever. With
Yeah, it is confusing. MTF and
yeah,
FTM.
yeah. Anyways, with biological women, and they like as long as they're comfortable with it, they'll do it. But a trans woman raped a biological woman not that long ago, and
In
they're still
your
doing it.
facility?
Yeah,
Is yours segregated?
very loosely. Like on one, it's an old motel that's repurposed as a rehab facility. So one half's male and one half's female,
Oh, I
even
see.
though like 3 times more males than there are women.
But
And I
they
think
share
that's
the common facilities, the common area.
they no they very loosely. We try to keep them separated as much as possible,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's just a stupid setup. They should have done it somewhere else or built their own facility or something like that. Once they go to the IOP, which is an intensive outpatient facility, and they have like this other hotel and this other facility that they just built or bought out or whatever. It's a lot more co-ed, but we have a lot of people with like intermingling and sneaking off to have sex and starting relationships and stuff like that. So
Oh,
they're there for their treatment. Not it's not a dating retreat. So, but yeah, like I the video that I'm going to release. I'm probably going to release it maybe tomorrow. I didn't release a video besides this week. My first real interaction was in prisons. There's always a handful of them in prisons, and there was this one who's a little short, stocky guy like me, real big, aggressive, kind of. And he murdered his boyfriend with a hammer and drove around with him in the trunk for 2 weeks. And he would rape his roommates who were fully grown men, like on a regular basis.
he was
And I don't know,
a male.
a male transitioning to a female. Didn't look very feminine at all, though. Imagine me with like kind of like this weird croppy hair and makeup tattooed on my face. Yeah, that dude was scary though. He would rape full grown men like on a regular basis. I don't know why they didn't put him in isolation. It's ridiculous.
Well, he sounds way more violent than any of the actual men that
Yeah.
I know.
And there was this other one too. It was a female transitioning to a male, and she raped a biological 10-year-old girl at the psych hospital that I worked at. So it's not all men that commit violence. There's plenty of
Oh
women who
no.
commit violence, and the legal system's much more lenient on women.
Yep. I'd say there's a bias. Most of the violence in my life growing up came from women. Had some babysitters
Hmm.
that would do really sadistic things to me, and other women I've been hit, scratched, slapped. Clawed. Men don't do any of that to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of experience with both men and women. Not physical by women, but definitely emotional and psychological for sure.
Oh yeah, me
And
too by
that,
far.
and that's more harmful than the physical stuff that I've endured by my biological dad, for sure. I think.
Women seem they try to use shame and guilt and negative emotions to get you to do what they think you should be doing.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of gaslighting,
Hmm.
a lot of Machiavellianism. That's what this whole social justice movement is. It's just Machiavellianism.
And women develop, like I experienced this with my sister. Women develop socially faster than men. My sister was to this. She's light years ahead of me, especially with the autism of what's
Yeah.
going on socially. So she's like a master. She can puppeteer all of those social strings, and I barely know what's even going on around me. So they definitely have the edge when it comes to social. I don't know, like reputational damage, social manipulation. I feel like I'm completely at the mercy of women socially.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear about people in the audience. I don't know if they're still here. We have Elodie, she's French. We have Dolbez, he's Norwegian, and we have Schizoid, who's in the UK. What's the dynamic like in your countries? I'd like to hear it down in the comments. And if you're not watching this live stream, let us know down in the comments below. Or if you're a male and you've been affected by any of this, let me know too. So I'm a straight white male, and you're a straight or you're a gay white male, I'm like Satan, and you're like a lesser demon, I guess, in society.
Except I am the Satanist, and um, well, I don't consider so white, depending on what it means. Yes, I have white skin. Culturally, I don't consider myself white at all. I consider myself Cajun, which is a ethnicity, and it's a French, rural French ethnicity. It's not Anglo-Saxon white at all. I don't relate to white culture, white people. Theirs is weird to me as they are to all the other ethnicities. But there's so many types of white. Like whiteness is so diverse. So they usually mean it to mean Western or Anglo-Saxon. Like you have black people that contribute to whiteness. You have Hispanics that are upholding white supremacy. So they're using white in a very strange way that doesn't mean skin color. But I've been told this is what I've been told. It's white presenting. I'm a white presenting male, and so that's enough. That carries a certain message in today's society that people react to.
And what do you think about being white is so demonized?
I don't know because I don't demonize it. I think it's people that are maybe feel on the outside. They see white as the dominant group, whatever that means, and they don't have a pathway into society, which I don't know why. Like, we live in the freest country. Like, anybody can do anything. If you're not somehow actualizing your goals or your vision for yourself, it's not because other white people are doing it. It's because you haven't figured out how to do it yet. The like locus of control is you. And so I don't know what they see when they look at society. They see a bunch of white people that meet secretly in boardrooms and plan society and deliberately exclude. I don't. They have some fevered or distorted narrative going on in their imaginations that I can't relate to or tap into. So I don't know what they mean by white. Now I have been told it's a kind of a stand-in for Western values in general, like Enlightenment, liberal values in general, or rationality. GDK Lockout says, "Hi, Jeff and Jeff."
Oh, is that on your
Hi,
channel?
GDK. Is that Garlock?
Oh, it took a while for it to come. Hi, hello, GDK Lockout.
I think that's Garlock. I talked to him Saturday.
Oh, okay.
We
It's
talked
not.
about masculinity.
Oh, I have to check that one out. I'm not familiar with them.
Oh, it's a great one. He's in Ireland and he does a lot of work with convicts and men that are at risk for going back to prison.
Says they point towards 1% of being the oppressors. They say that all men are those 1%. That's what I was going to say. Um, like, well, we get blamed for like enslaving the blacks, which white men did or white people did. But
And they
since the
also
beginning of
freed the
time,
blacks.
true, there's a whole side that died and freed the blacks. But there's been slavery around since the beginning of time. We're not the only one to enslave people, and it was the Africans that sold us the blacks, anyways. A black female, I forgot her name, was one of the main people that were, you know, distributing the blacks to us. And a lot of people don't know that 10% of the people that we did enslave here in the U.S. are Irish. They
Yeah.
actually they blended the Irish with the blacks because they thought like black wasn't as appealing, so they had them mate basically and procreate. And nobody here in the U.S. is full anything. Like I may be white, I guess. Like these whites make me look kind of pale. I'm actually fairly dark, but I'm quarter Chilean and 8% Cherokee or so, or
You're
not eight, but
BIPOC.
eight. Yeah. So the U.S. is just a big melting pot. We're a very uh, diverse country here, and like Dolbez was saying, like 1% of us are like the executives and the politicians who give the white men, a bad name. Not all of us are like. There's no white privilege. It's not like a big extent like people think it is. Like I
That's
hear
why I
people
think
go,
it's ignorance. And instead of
yeah.
educating people out of their ignorances and prejudices, which is what they used to do in my generation, they're entrenching those prejudices through education.
Mm-hmm.
Elodie says it's the same dynamics in France, she thinks.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to hear more about that. I'd like to definitely get Dolbez on too one day if he wants to contact me. I don't know if he's on Discord or anything, but I think he's a bright kid and I'd like to talk to him. And he also says, honestly, Britain literally went on a crusade to end slavery. It has been estimated that the UK spent a total more money on abolishing slavery than ever gained from it.
But it's a narrative. I don't think facts matter to an emotion-driven narrative.
And masculinity and femininity is not all about men and women. It's just about dichotomies, basically, like the yin yang. Like, I think masculinity is rationality and femininity is emotionality, and we need a blend of both, just like this whole social justice warrior movement and feminism is just an emotional response. There's no, it's like, like they cancel people, they just accuse men of raping them, even though there's no evidence. There's this rational masculine process called due process, which, like free speech, is a very integral part of this country. And, we don't go on witch hunts, basically, and people should have a right to a fair trial. And that's kind of in jeopardy right now because they think all masculine energy and terms are bad.
Well, and we all have masculine, feminine in
For
us, whatever
sure.
that means. But they, I very general, but I see men as tending more toward an internal solution to their problems or a self, like personal agency, and women want an external solution. They want somebody they can, when they first of all, they seem to feel entitled to never feel any unpleasant emotion or feeling ever, and when they do, they want an external agent to come in and make the problem better for them. Or they want to control it externally. They want you to change how you talk or how you present or what you do so that their emotions can feel better instead of managing their emotions from an internal locus.
Yeah. I think that's FE, extroverted feeling. A lot of it too is like, oh, I can't really regulate my own emotions, so I have to have people around them regulate it for myself.
And when you have an entire culture that empowers that, like,
Mm-hmm.
no, here's how to regulate your own. We can help you with that. Like, no, girlfriend, you're right. That was wrong. You were the victim of an injustice. We need to get together and make that external person stop doing that to you.
And I can't find out who said this, but I thought it was Hitler, but I don't think it is. And he said once you get people in a group, they stop thinking and they start feeling.
The group
It's a
think.
yeah.
I watch that happen all the time with just neurotypicals.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that. I see it. My friend was walking by a protest one day, and he told me how he was kind of overcome with the urge to. He didn't know what it was about or what was going on, but this feeling hit him to like join in and become part of it. And I don't, whatever that herd instinct is, I don't feel it.
Maybe it's like a neurodivergent, neurotypical thing. Because I went to like I took my dad and my uncle to a Arizona Cardinals game, a football game, and just people around there just feeding off energy. And like this is the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. I just don't get it. I had a friend that was talking about how he went to the Diamondbacks when they were in a World Series in 2001, and like just there was so much emotion in the air, and they all started crying and hugging each other and stuff like that. Like I don't get it. It's just a
Yeah,
game.
feel. I don't feel that either. Like there's movies when I'm watching a movie with people, I can tap into the same. Like we're all laughing at the same parts, and we're
Mm-hmm.
sus- suspenseful at the same parts. And then Mardi Gras, I definitely get into. That's kind of a Dionysian, every collective experience. But I was socialized into it from a very early age. So there are instances where I do feel that, but I don't know why I don't for others.
How far was your hometown from New Orleans?
Well, we probably about 3 hours, but I grew up in the Cajun part, and the Cajuns have their own Mardi Gras, where we
Oh yeah.
dress up and chase the chicken, and we would go from house to house. The men ride on horseback, and they have the colorful pointy hats. It's a tradition that goes all the way back to the Middle Ages. And when I showed the videos up here in Seattle, they said that my culture was the stuff of nightmares, and that the hats reminded them of the KKK,
Yeah, I was about
and
to
they
say.
were horrified by it. But we go from house to house, and you collect a chicken at each house. They'll like throw the chicken off the roof, and then all the men run and chase it and put it in the sack or whatever. And we would ride in the horse trailer and follow them. And you dress in costumes, so we'd all have costumes, and we'd go from house to house and watch them chase the chicken. And at the end of the day, they would put all the chickens in a big communal like cauldron almost and make a community gumbo, and the whole village would come out and eat off the gumbo. So that's our Mardi Gras tradition. And growing up, I thought it was a national holiday, and I thought everybody was doing that all over the U.S. I thought people in California were chasing chickens, and people in New York City were chasing chickens and making gumbo. I had no idea it was like that localized of a tradition.
Interesting. We have like Day of the Dead, which is like a
Oh
Mexican
yeah,
tradition. That's I went
I love
to
Day of the Dead.
like I took my son to and his little brother to the All Souls Procession parade, and like I want to join the parade. Like okay, so I just grabbed him. We started walking. I don't know if you're supposed to register or whatever. We just did it. I
Fun.
just like to give them that experience, I guess. All right, but is there anything else you want to talk about? I got a few minutes. I got to head out here pretty quick.
Um, no, I think we kind of touched on all the points we wanted to.
All right. If you like this conversation and you resonate with any of it, I would appreciate a comment down below, a like, share, subscribe, share this content on social media if you resonate with anything that we said. I think free speech is a very, very valuable asset we have in this country and other free world countries, but people are trying to shit can it basically, and we just need to stand up. I think people are getting tired of it and they're starting to speak out against it, but don't be afraid to be canceled. Like Jeff said, he's been canceled his whole life. The
You
same
will
thing.
you survive. But I don't have a family and everything to support either. Sometimes that's a factor that but you cancellation's not the end of the world and there's plenty of support out there if it happens. Just contact us. And also we have Discords if you my all of my Discords and my live stream is a free speech zone, so you're welcome to come and talk about anything you want and voice your opinion. No one's going to censor you or shut you down. And you can always get support there too. So you can contact me for, I have a men's Discord and a Discord for gifted neurodivergent people.
Oh, and Dolbez appreciates that the stream started early. Yeah, with my schedule, I can't really stream too late. I definitely like to try to connect with an international audience too. I think like a lot of YouTubers seem like they're in the U.S. and they only try to connect with U.S. people. So I like to hear different cultures and different perspectives.
Yeah. Well, I've been streaming in the afternoon because I figured that's when most of the
Yeah,
audience is going to be around, but I might just start streaming in the morning.
yeah, maybe vary it because I think we're like I streamed with Elodie with that neurodivergent panel, which you could check out. And she's in France, so she's 9 hours ahead of me. So it kind of works out. It's in the afternoon. People are getting off
Yeah.
work
We
over
have
there.
all our international people Gorlock's from Ireland, Dobez, Elodie.
I used to have a pretty big Asian following too. I'd like to see them back, but it's I guess 10 o'clock at night. They're rougher, give or take. But anyways, check out Gen X Jeff's channel, our Discords, like you said. He has a coaching session for neurodivergent men. If you want to contact me with typology or vent your trauma, I try to encourage people to get online and vent their trauma. I think it's another stigmatized population, and probably 2/3 of us are traumatized heavily in some way. But don't be afraid to speak out and reach out.
Yep. If you need to talk or need support, reach out. We have a whole group of
All
people
right.
you can get support from.
All right. Dolbez, Elodie, Garlock, probably saying that wrong. Schizoid, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody.